A network of networks. www. Online. The internet. Physical touch made digital. We communicate, create, and transform. Our world is no longer the same. Gone from opening encyclopedias to typing into a search bar, society has been empowered. The democratization of knowledge, the devolution of power and education, the dissemination of information. We are all living this moment, the internet. And yet, not everything is a bed of roses. Turn over this gleaming rock and you'll see there are insects thriving in the dark. The internet empowered society, but it eats away at the fabric of it too. Disinformation, hate speech, political polarization exasperated, extremism assisted, peace and community undermined the internet. A truly incredible human creation, however, not without its drawbacks. The hand that feeds you is the same one to choke you. Anonymity fosters freedom, freedom of expression. Anonymity fosters freedom, freedom to abuse. Single voices resonate through the entire earth because of the internet. Ask Greta, speak to Malala. Single voices resonate through the entire earth because of the internet. Fake news spreads 6 times more quickly than the truth. The hand that feeds you is the same one to choke you. So what are we going to do? How do we move towards an internet for trust? We have been given a great power. With great power comes great responsibility, and this is a room full of heroes. I'm like Sway. I don't have the answers. No one person does, but in this room, we can find guidance towards the public good. It's time to take a seat, be slow to speak, and quick to listen. One of the few guarantees of this conference is that we won't all agree. Still, human rights are our common ground, and a common ground is the perfect place to build. I know you've brought your brains with you. Make sure you have your hearts too. It's time to move towards an internet for trust. Let's see what we can do.
Excellences, mesdames et messieurs, je vous souhaite la bienvenue ici. Je m'appelle Isabelle Coumard, je suis votre MC pour les 2 journées suivantes. Et c'est un énorme plaisir et aussi un honneur de vous accueillir au sein ici de cette magnifique maison de l'UNESCO pour la conférence mondiale de l'UNESCO pour un Internet de confiance. Alors permettez-moi quelques instants pour partager avec vous ce qui nous réunit aujourd'hui. Et je me permets de passer rapidement en anglais, because we just heard now a very moving and important call to action from a very talented young poet. And as he said, our world is no longer the same. And it's up to us in this room, but also beyond the boundaries of this room, to establish that internet for trust. Depuis plus de 20 ans, l'Internet et les réseaux sociaux nous accompagnent dans notre quotidien et ont révolutionné tous nos modes de communication, et nous le sachons ici. Nous sommes 8 milliards de personnes dans le monde avec plus de 5 milliards d'internautes. 5 milliards, c'est énorme. Soit plus de 60% de la population mondiale. Si l'Internet et les réseaux sociaux offrent aujourd'hui de nombreux avantages, nous le sachons, nous venons de l'entendre, des individus s'expriment de plus en désinformant l'information. la réalité et en propageant des discours de haine. Le mandat global de l'UNESCO comprend la promotion de la libre circulation des idées par le mot et par l'image. L'UNESCO a décidé de développer, par le biais de consultations multipartites, des principes pour la régulation des plateformes numériques. L'objectif de ces principes est de soutenir l'élaboration et la mise en œuvre de procédures de régularisation garantissant la liberté de l'expression et l'accès de l'information, tout en gérant le contenu illégal et le contenu risquant de nuire considérablement à la démocratie et au respect des droits de l'homme. Pour y parvenir, de nombreuses personnalités, spécialistes et expertes du numérique ont accepté de participer et d'apporter leur éclairage et leur expertise et contribution à cette consultation, et nous les remercions. Nous serons plus de 1500 participants réunis ici à l'UNESCO et un nombre encore plus important en ligne. Nous offrions aussi la possibilité de suivre les débats et partager sur les réseaux sociaux avec les hashtags en français, Internet for Trust et Reboot the Net. Et je vous encourage à le faire. Les services d'interprétation de la conférence seront assurés en anglais, français, espagnol et en arabe. Et au nom de l'UNESCO, je tiens à remercier la Fondation Sultan bin Abdulaziz Al Saud d'avoir généreusement assuré l'interprétation en arabe pendant les journées de la conférence. N'oubliez pas, une petite chose importante, éteignez vos portables. Et merci beaucoup. Et il est important de remercier tous les donateurs qui ont rendu cette conférence possible, y compris ceux du programme multidonateur pour la liberté d'expression et la sécurité des journalistes. L'Union européenne aussi et l'Institut Alana. Je remercie également tous les partenaires qui ont organisé des événements parallèles hier. Now, as UNESCO Director General Audrey Azoulay stated back in 2022, the World Press Freedom Conference in Uruguay, we cannot leave it to private companies to resolve this existential issue themselves, as their business models will continue to favor engagement and clicks, sometimes at any cost, prioritizing sensational content over verified information. So let's remember, once again, and I want to underline this, UNESCO is the UN agency mandated with freedom of expression. So following these words, it is my great pleasure to invite to the stage for her welcoming remarks the Director General of UNESCO, Audrey Azoulay. Please join me in welcoming her.
Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Monsieur le Président de la Conférence générale de l'UNESCO, Madame la Présidente du Conseil exécutif de l'UNESCO, chère Maria Ressa, lauréate 2021 du prix de la liberté de la presse UNESCO Guillermo Cano et prix Nobel de la paix la même année. Mesdames et messieurs les représentants des organisations intergouvernementales, des agences sœurs de l'ONU, mesdames et messieurs les régulateurs, les représentants des plateformes, les journalistes, membres de la société civile, mesdames et messieurs les ambassadeurs, excellences, chers amis. Cela vient d'être rappelé, en quelques années seulement, les réseaux sociaux sont devenus l'une des interfaces fondamentales dans notre rapport au monde, dans notre rapport aux autres, dans toutes les facettes de nos vies. C'est une révolution qui a d'ores et déjà permis une extraordinaire accélération des échanges, qui a donné naissance à de nouveaux espaces d'expression, et nous pouvons nous en réjouir. Ces évolutions ont été portées par l'innovation, par le progrès technologique, et ce, à une vitesse exponentielle, une vitesse inouïe et une évolution qui n'a pas été pensée autrement que par les avancées du progrès technologique. Nous prenons la mesure seulement dans les crises des problèmes que cela pose, de fragmentation du débat public, par exemple, que cette nouvelle ère médiatique a causé dans nos sociétés. Car dans cette nouvelle forme d'agora moderne, bien souvent, au lieu de se rencontrer, on s'enferme. On s'enferme dans des bulles avec des personnes de même opinion, où les préjugés ne sont pas contredits mais confortés, et où l'on ne cherche pas à convaincre mais à vaincre. Nous prenons peut-être hors des crises moins la mesure des évolutions en cours, du brouillage des frontières entre le vrai et le faux, du déni parfois très organisé de faits scientifiquement établis, de l'amplification de la désinformation et des complotismes qui certes ne sont pas nés avec les réseaux sociaux, mais qui s'y épanouissent bien mieux que la vérité en l'absence de régulation. Ces dangers résultent de nos comportements, mais surtout des recommandations et des hiérarchies issues des algorithmes des plateformes qui utilisent les données personnelles. Ces dangers ne sont pas une anomalie, un bug, un accident momentané, mais sont la conséquence de fonctionnalités à la base même des modèles économiques en cours. Un modèle qui, pour accroître l'audience et sa monétisation, recherche l'engagement, c'est-à-dire la réaction, et qui trop souvent, pour cela, privilégie l'émotion par rapport à la réflexion. Un modèle aussi qui s'expose à être exploité trop facilement aussi en l'absence de régulation par les professionnels de la désinformation, avec toutes les conséquences que cela peut avoir, jusqu'à risquer de briser la confiance envers les institutions, envers les élections, qui courent le risque d'être manipulées par des rumeurs ou des faux profils créés dans cet unique but. Et dans cette anomie dans laquelle nous sommes, au lieu de faire société, il y a une vraie menace que les réseaux sociaux contribuent à la défaire. Car livrés à eux-mêmes, leur réponse spontanée n'est pas à la hauteur de l'enjeu et de fait n'a aucune incitation à l'être. Malgré leurs immenses ressources, les plateformes ne consacrent aujourd'hui que très peu de moyens à l'éducation des utilisateurs ou à la modération, qui demeure inexistante ou qui est parfois très facilement remise en cause dans l'immense majorité des langues et très inégalitaire entre les régions du monde. Cela, ici à l'UNESCO, nous le voyons bien. Et cette situation est d'autant plus problématique que ces effets de bulle favorisent l'expression des extrêmes et peuvent finir par entraver, au lieu de soutenir, le droit à l'information. Nous le savons, dans l'histoire, chaque révolution de l'information, celle de la presse de masse au XIXe siècle, celle de la radio et de la télévision au XXe, a été accompagnée par la pensée et par la révolution des cadres de régulation pour faire en sorte que l'innovation serve le bien commun et non celui de quelques-uns. C'est ce travail, cette pensée, ce travail sur les principes de régulation qui fait défaut aujourd'hui. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, ensuring information as a public good in the digital age has been a major priority for UNESCO in recent years, in line with the Windhoek Plus 30 declaration adopted at our Global Press Freedom Conference in Namibia in 2021 and endorsed by all our member states. We, as you know, published a first set of principles for the transparency of platforms already 2 years ago. We've also scaled up our work to promote media and information literacy with a new curriculum updated to better respond to the challenges posed by digital platforms and algorithms. We are now supporting teacher training in this field of media and information literacy in 25 countries, and we're working to address shortcomings in content moderation with the project Social Media for Peace, a project supported by the European Union. In Kenya, Colombia, Indonesia, in Bosnia-Herzegovina, this initiative has shown how important it is to adapt moderation to local contexts, local sensitivities, in order to support peace. But while this work on the ground, adapted to local context, is essential, it is not enough. We also need guidelines to help shape the rules applicable to platforms themselves, and we need them now. Between now and the end of 2024, more than 90 elections will take place worldwide, and over 2 million people will be called on to cast their votes. We cannot allow these democratic processes to be swayed by dealers of disinformation, opening the door to all kinds of dangers. The regulatory work to ensure transparency, to protect democratic life is, of course, the responsibility first of states, and many of them are taking action, with at least 55 initiatives already underway. But if these regulatory initiatives are developed in isolation, with each country or region working in their own corner, they are not without risks. Information disruption is by definition a global problem, so our reflections must take place also at this scale, the right scale, the global scale, based upon common principles. Firstly, because digital giants have unrivaled international reach and technological prowess. We need our actions to be both consistent and coherent, and to ensure also that no country or region is left behind. And secondly, because regulating digital platforms is an urgent but also very delicate process if we want regulation to uphold rather than erode freedom of expression and human rights. If we do not think of solutions built around these rights, we leave the field open to dangerous incursions on freedoms. This conference has been organized so that this fundamental global discussion can take place. We are very happy that so many of you have responded to our call: government representatives, regulators, digital platforms, civil society. I would like to thank especially President Lula of Brazil and Prime Minister Jakobsdóttir of Iceland for their messages, which we will hear shortly. I also very much welcome the presence of special rapporteurs on freedom of expression from major intergovernmental organizations. We are here to listen to you, for we need all the voices, all the expertise, all the point of views, if we are to rise to this complex but essential challenge. UNESCO is proud to lead these discussions here, building on our universal vocation, our ability to gather all actors around a single table, and building on our long experience supporting cooperation and providing guidance for broadcasting regulators and press councils around the world. Together, we will continue this dialogue so that it can lead to appropriate guidelines on transparency, on accountability, and other principles. then our goal will be to put them into practice, assisting our member states in this regard, just as we have done with communication and media laws for many decades now. And we will also continue to be a space for dialogue, including dialogue between regulators to exchange best practices and to promote better international coordination, the necessity of which is all, I think, too clear today. Pour conclure, Mesdames et Messieurs, Excellences, nous vivons chacun la façon dont les plateformes numériques ont changé la manière de nous lier et de nous confronter au monde, de nous confronter aux autres. C'est en prenant pleinement la mesure de cette révolution technologique que nous pourrons en faire une révolution qui ne se fasse pas au détriment des droits humains, de la liberté d'expression et de la démocratie, pour que l'information reste un bien commun. C'est maintenant que nous devons ensemble réfléchir et agir. Je vous remercie, je vous souhaite de fructueuses et certainement agitées discussions pendant ces 2 jours. Merci beaucoup, bonne conférence.
Big thanks there to the Director General for her words there, underlining the sense of urgency in terms of regulating the internet, but also importantly maintaining freedom of expression. Well, it is my pleasure now to present to you a video that has been sent to you, as the Director General told us, from the Prime Minister of Iceland, and that is Katrín Jakobsdóttir.
Cher Audrey, distinguished audience, I am delighted to be with you here today virtually to address this very important issue. This issue is closely tied to the founding mandate of UNESCO to protect the free flow of information, both word and images, and for UNESCO to serve as a laboratory of ideas. Today, few things impact our minds more than the information we get through our digital devices, brought to us by algorithms. The huge changes we are seeing in how we get our information are neither the first or the last ones of their kind. When written language replaced spoken language, and when printing presses replaced manuscript writers, the power structures of societies were inevitably affected. The medium is the message has never been more relevant now when we are in the middle of the digital transformation. It presents great opportunities, both economically and in challenging fields, such as environmental issues and in healthcare. The internet and social media have enabled people, both within local communities and across borders worldwide, to connect in a way we have not seen before. And this has often been a force for great positive change. These tools have given people a voice and agency, given marginalized groups ways to seek their rights, to get their issues on the political agenda. But at the same time, the internet and social media can be a dangerous place. Hate speech has driven people into despair, and online harassment has ruined lives. We also know that vulnerable people have been radicalized through internet communities. It's also been notable how women, including politicians and public figures, are targeted with threats and sexual harassment. Here, the goal clearly seems to be silence them and diminish their power. This is in line with tendencies we've seen before, when traditional power structures change and a wider group gets influence, the backlash against these changes becomes real. We must always fight against such tendencies, safeguarding the progress we have made towards a more equal and just world. The online harassment and violence against journalists, not least women journalists, poses a threat to media freedom globally. Deliberate spread of false information in order to undermine democracy presents a grave danger to all of us. In the past couple of years, we have witnessed two of the world's largest democracies question the integrity of elections, risking the peaceful transition of power due to the spread of disinformation online. Algorithms can create large divides within communities, and this can create deeper discord in our public discourse, harm democratic processes, affect elections, and undermine the institutions we rely on to run our societies. Discussions such as the ones we are having now in Paris are immensely important, and I want to thank UNESCO for organizing this impressive multi-stakeholder gathering. This topic is one of the most important ones for the health of our societies and the future of international relations. It's important to figure out a common set of guidelines on how to regulate this digital space. Technology cannot be misused to suppress people, to survey or harass, or to shut down the internet. We need to ensure that new technologies serve the people, that they strengthen democratic processes and human rights, instead of undermining basic principles and values. And the impact of artificial intelligence on our societies is unquestionable and is a growing issue we must take seriously. And UNESCO's important human rights-based recommendation on the ethics of AI responds to that reality. If these innovative technologies are to increase our common good, we need to ensure fair and equal accessibility. Accessibility of AI for indigenous and small language groups can be critical for their future viability. In Iceland, we face this challenge, and it has been a priority of my government to make sure that new technologies are and will be available in Icelandic, the language on which our cultural heritage is founded and we use to communicate. We need to make the digital space a safe space for our children, and this is an integral part of the media legislation we are preparing to propose in Iceland, and the guidelines we are discussing here will be an important part of the upcoming debate in Iceland on this legislation. Moreover, we've been doing comprehensive work on how to counter hate speech, and I will present a resolution to the Icelandic Parliament on that shortly. The work of UNESCO and the UN and these guidelines will be useful in that discussion. We are also working on ways to counter the spread of disinformation during electoral periods. For this, the guidelines will also be useful. Dear guests, Iceland currently holds the chairmanship of the Council of Europe, the key institution for democracy, human rights, and rule of law in 46 countries. Our goal is to use this chairmanship to advance human rights, and as the Council of Europe is a leading organization on media freedom, we will facilitate the debate on these guidelines there as well. Chère Audrey, merci pour votre direction sur cette question. Je vous souhaite à toutes et à tous bonne chance dans cette tâche extrêmement difficile et j'ai hâte que mon gouvernement et moi continuions à travailler avec vous pour promouvoir la paix dans l'esprit de l'humanité à travers le monde. Merci.
An important message there from the Prime Minister of Ireland, highlighting the importance, obviously, of the digital space, but also its potential for discord, for division, making it dangerous for our children, for us today. Now, the President of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, also wanted to express his support for the work of this conference, and he's done so via a written message. The message will be read out by João Brandt, who is the Secretary of Digital Policies at the Communications Secretariat at the Presidency of the Republic of Brazil. I'd like to now welcome him to the stage.
Your Excellency, Ms. Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, Your Excellency, Ambassador Santiago Mourão, Permanent Delegate of Brazil to UNESCO, and President of the 41st General Conference of UNESCO, Your Excellency, Ambassador Tamara Siamashvili, Permanent Delegate of the Republic of Serbia to UNESCO, and Chairperson of the Executive Board of UNESCO. Your Excellency, Minister Luiz Roberto Barroso of the Supreme Federal Court of Brazil, Ms. Maria Ressa, CEO of Rappler and Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Your Excellency, Ms. Director General, I would like to thank you for the invitation to attend this global conference by UNESCO held in Paris between the 22nd and 23rd of February 2023. Digital platforms in their different modalities are a fundamental part of our day-to-day lives. They define the way we communicate, how we relate to other people, and consume products and services. The development of the internet has brought extraordinary accomplishments to the global economy and to our societies. Digital platforms have helped to promote and disseminate knowledge. They facilitate trade, they increase productivity, they broaden the offer of services and the flow of information. These benefits, nevertheless, are distributed in an unequal manner between people of different levels of income, broadening social inequality. The digital environment caused the concentration of market and power in the hands of few companies and countries. It has also caused risks to democracy, risks to the civilized interaction between people, risks to public health. The dissemination of disinformation during the COVID-19 pandemic contributed to thousands of deaths. Hate speech makes victims every day, and the victimized are the most vulnerable sectors of our societies. The world has witnessed the attack by extremists to the seats of the executive, legislative, and judiciary branches of power in Brazil on January 8th. Brazilian democracy won that battle, and it's now stronger. But we'll always be indignant with the barbaric scenes of that Sunday. What happened that day was the culmination of a campaign initiated much before and that used as ammunition lies and disinformation. This campaign had as targets democracy and the credibility of Brazilian institutions. To a large extent, this campaign was nurtured, organized, and disseminated through several digital platforms and messaging apps. It used the same method used to generate acts of violence elsewhere in the world. These must stop. The international community needs from now on to work to give effective answers to these challenging questions of our times. We need balance. On the one hand, it's necessary to guarantee the exercise of individual freedom of expression, a fundamental human right. On the other hand, we need to ensure a collective right, the right of society to have access to trustworthy information and not lies and disinformation. We also cannot allow the integrity of our democracies to be affected by decisions taken by some few actors that currently control the digital platforms. Regulation should guarantee the exercise of individual and collective rights. It should correct distortions of a business model that generate profits exploiting the personal data of users. To be more efficient, digital platforms regulation should be designed with transparency and social participation. In the international field, this matter should be coordinated in a multilateral manner. The debating process spearheaded by UNESCO, I'm sure, will be useful in the construction of a plural and transparent dialogue, a process that will involve governments, experts, and the civil society. Concurrently, we should work to reduce digital gaps and promote the autonomy of developing countries in the digital realm. We need to guarantee access to the internet for all, stimulate education, and the necessary skills for an active and conscious participation of our citizens in the digital world. Developing countries should be capable of acting in a sovereign manner in the data economy as agents and not only as exporters or passive content consumers. This UNESCO conference is the beginning of this debate and not its final stop. I'm sure that Brazil will be able to contribute in a significant manner to the construction of a fairer and more balanced digital environment based in transparent and democratic governance structures. I take this opportunity to renew my assurance of our highest esteem and consideration. Signed by Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, President of the Federative Republic of Brazil. Thank you.
I'm now going to quote the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize laureate. And you know what? It's a bit awkward because she's in the room, so I better not mess it up. But that is Maria Ressa, and we're going to hear from Maria Ressa in just a few moments. But she said, without facts, you can't have trust. And without trust, we have no shared reality, no democracy, and it becomes impossible to deal with our world's existential problems. Well, Maria Ressa is CEO of the new site Rappler, and as I said, the 2021 laureate, Peace Prize laureate, but also the UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize. She herself has been the target of online attacks and disinformation, and has become one of the world's most authoritative voices on the subject. Her presence and her informed opinions are absolutely indispensable, and it is my pleasure to welcome her to the podium.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much from Brazil to Iceland to Audrey, Azoulay here in UNESCO. It is so wonderful to be here. And the first thing I have to say is to so many people in the audience, thank you so much for all your work over the last few years. I don't think I'd be standing in front of you without your support. To UNESCO, to the Hold the Line Coalition, to so many friends here. But here's the thing, there's so many more like me, so many more who struggle every day just to do their jobs. The quote, without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these three, we have no shared reality. We cannot solve any problem. We have no democracy. That's evidence-based, data-based. So I will quickly show it to you, and then I hope this will help power our discussions in the next 2 days. I've been up front. In the Nobel lecture, I said, it's time to reform or revoke Section 230. And that is because impunity must stop. Let me take this apart, right? Please pull up. It is a battle for facts. But let's start with the data. Justice Brandeis said, the way to fight hate speech is with more speech. No longer. It's a different world. It's like we're speaking a different language. This is data. This is algorithms. You heard this from Audrey's speech today, right? But think about it like this. How did we go from the world we knew to the world where we are today? It's going from an Excel sheet of data to big data. It's going from thinking through one word at a time to AI, to natural language processing, GPT-3 that takes every word and punches 1.7 billion permutations of what the next word can be. It is a very, very different world where free speech is used to pound free speech. This I know in person. 90 hate messages per hour meant to stop me from doing my job. So that change of scale, right? Here's that, let me just summarize all of this, and I apologize to folks at UNESCO who have seen this 10 million times, because I keep saying I feel like Cassandra and Sisyphus combined since 2016. New gatekeepers, from journalists to technology, from news organizations, which are held accountable. You can hold us accountable. We are transparent. We make a mistake, we correct it. To technology, which is in the dark. What principles guide it? Let me quickly tell you what those principles are. So the very first thing in 2014 was just when we saw it, content was separated from distribution. That's a big shift, because now you can do the best journalism, you can have the best content. NGOs, UNESCO, the UN considered one of those, won't get us wide distribution as an influencer. I mean, you'll hear it in the panel, right? And why? Because let's talk values. The UN was set up with these principles, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that we signed to. But what if this is the value today? You go to your kid and say, hey, lie, I'll reward you. Lie all the time, I'll keep rewarding you. That's the fundamental design of the social media platforms that now connect all of us. Why? It's embedded in a model that we now call a business model called surveillance capitalism. We didn't get that name until 2019 from Shoshana Zuboff. And why lies? Why do lies spread faster? The second one, MIT study from 2018. We felt it in 2016 in the Philippines. For some reason, facts are really boring. And the lies, especially when laced with fear, with anger, with hate, with tribalism, us against them, they spread. It's like throwing a lit match into kindling. That's a fact. Lies spread faster than facts. So if you raise your family telling them to lie, what kind of people do they become? Pull it out, right? That's the incentive structure. When that is the beginning of our incentive structure, we live in the upside down. I always go to Stranger Things, you know, the upside down. This is where we are. It's yucky, covered with yuck, deceptively familiar. But you know, we have to somehow turn it right side up in your hands. Turn it right side up. Because our communication systems today are insidiously manipulating us. It is a behavior modification system. This term, A/B testing. Imagine if a drug company came in and said, hey, you're A. Let's test drug A. You, drug B. Oh, drug A, you guys died. Sorry. That's what's happening to our minds, to our emotions. Because the greatest problem we face, and a biologist actually said this, E.O. Wilson, he said, the greatest crisis we face are our Paleolithic emotions, our medieval institutions, and our godlike technology. Very, very different, right? So what kinds of things do we put into a law? Because in the end, the way we deal with this is long-term education, medium-term legislation. Short-term, we're defenseless. It is just us, and I'll show you how we can handle it. But all of these things come into play. Data privacy, antitrust, user safety, and content moderation is the end of the cascading failure. At dinner the other night, I was saying, you know, when we focus only on content moderation, it's like there's a polluted river, and we take a glass, we scoop out the water, we clean up the water, and then dump it back in the river. What we have to do is go all the way to the factory polluting the river, shut it down, and then resuscitate the river, right? That's the challenge in front of us. I'll show you from my experience, and I apologize to those who have seen this. In 2016, we came out with a weaponization of the internet series. We showed how 26 fake accounts can influence up to 3 million others. It's cheap, it's easy, and the incentive structure is lies. Lies spread at least 6 times faster than really boring facts. I feel sorry for anyone in government. I feel sorry for any woman in the public sphere. In the Philippines in 2017, women were attacked at least 10 times more than men. And the end goal, well, here's what happened to me in 2016, 90 hate messages per hour. But it wasn't quantified until I began to get pummeled with things like, what they do is they look for your weaknesses. So what we did, our only defense, it's a blessing and a curse when you get targeted because you see all the attacks. So we gathered the data. This is the first network in 2017 that attacked me, attacked opposition politicians, attacked women. And it was so systematic, it was broken down by demographics. What attacks did I get? Things like this, my gender, my color, anything that will make you ashamed, right? Fearful, because the goal is to make you opt out. And then when I didn't, then it came out like this. This is the day I was convicted. I'm still going strong. I still believe that we're going to win these cases, but you can see here what they do, because if they can't win with exponential lies bottom up, they come top down with the same lies. That's, if they still can't win, the weaponization of social media, the weaponization of the law, then they look for your weakest points. For me, I have dry skin. You know, this is my 37th year as a journalist. So for some reason, they started doing this. They kept the code word, scrotum face. My skin is better than that. You know? But this is dehumanization, and it isn't just happening to me. The end goal of things like this leads to real-world violence. Online violence is real-world violence. So it took months for Facebook to take this stuff out. And then they did things like this. Every time there's an award or there's a film or there's anything, the Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize, I got pummeled for that. They made my skin look worse, and then they're kind of funny. Scrotum face gets added on. And then if the social media platforms begin to take this out, they're still there, but when they take it out, they then code word it, right? This isn't just happening to me. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Nietzsche was right. UNESCO in 2021, thank you, along with the International Center for Journalists, came out with this. A study, Julie Passetti did the chilling global trends in online violence against women journalists. The first time outside of Rappler where we began to see data and stats. 73% of women journalists have been attacked. And move it beyond women journalists. Women researchers are opting out, especially those working on disinformation. Women politicians are opting out precisely because they get attacked, right? Of the 73%, 25% received threats of physical violence, and of that, 20% have turned into real-world violence, right? Attacked or abused offline. But here's the thing, for me, at least in this one, ICFJ and UNESCO took almost 500,000 attacks, and they went through. What were the goals? 60% were meant to tear down my credibility. Thank you, thanks to you, it didn't work. But there are many Filipinos who believe it. So these are some of the things that wind up happening when you're trying to do your job. The other 40% was meant to tear down my spirit. It didn't work either. It's like waving a red flag for a bull in front of a bull for me. But again, If you look at forbidden stories, the attacks on women are off the scale. It is sending, if you were vulnerable before, LGBTQ+, women, these are attacked even more. Okay, so I still don't have, okay, I have 2 minutes. So this is the last part, right? Like information warfare. That's not even in a lot of the documents we come out with. And yet, geopolitical power is exploiting this. They can go from, forget the nation states, they go to the cellular level, to the weaknesses of our biology, to your fears, and they crack it open. This is why Black Lives Matter in the United States was attacked on both sides in 2016, and the goal was not to make you believe one thing, it was to tear it apart. It was to make you distrust everything. Because if you can't trust, you can't move. There's 3 layers: personal, that's psychological. The second layer is sociological. Groups behave differently. The third layer is the part that there's not much study done on this. It is actually our evolution, right? When our brains are literally being rewired, when we are pumped full of dopamine. There are studies that are out now that show this. When toxic sludge pumps through each of us to keep us scrolling, making a lot of money for the tech companies, but tearing down any sense of meaning for this high school generation today, for Gen Z, right? Think about the impact on your kids. And finally, the last one, going back to what Audrey said. She said there are at least 90 elections up to 2024. 2024, I always say it's the last 2 minutes of democracy, because there will be a tipping point. What's happened when the information ecosystem's incentive structure rewards the lies, rewards anger, fear, us against them, is that you wind up electing illiberal leaders democratically. They crumble institutions from within, and they don't stay in their own countries. They ally together. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, set up by China and Russia, last year brought in Iran, Myanmar, Turkey, tech and economics, right? So the last part is, how can you have integrity of elections if you don't have integrity of facts? That's the geopolitical shift we're in. So the last chunk is, please, don't just think about Russia invading Ukraine. Please think about that too, though. But that's conventional warfare. In the Nobel lecture, I said, this is an individual battle for facts, for integrity, for values. It is up to you, each of us on social media. Don't get lost in this. Stand up, draw the line, where on this side you're good, and this side you're evil. It's that clear. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is very clear. I'll end it with this. This is what we did in the Philippines, because I don't want to leave you depressed. There's a solution. First, find the right solution legislatively, because we are not protected. There are no building codes. Right now, I know we're in a building that followed building codes. We are not protected. There's no consumer protection. There is no protection of people on this technology. And it is going to get worse. So what we did is, if it's education long-term, legislation medium-term, please move faster. Short-term, it is just us. And so what we did in the Philippines is this whole-of-society approach with a data pipeline. And I'm running out of time. I've had my 2 minutes. So I want to, please, 4 layers, right? News, fact-checking, they're really boring. Fact checks. The second layer is the mesh. Civil society groups, NGOs, human rights activists, businesses, church, whose task was to share those boring fact checks and add emotion. And we found that inspiration spreads as fast as anger. Inspiration. You are all leaders here. Finally, the third is the research groups, those poor researchers who keep telling us how we are being insidiously manipulated. And the last group is the law. How can you have rule of law if you don't have facts? And our lawyers who were part of this group in the Philippines were the most energized, because those journalists at the bottom, the first layer, we were exhausted. So this is it. That data pipeline gave us the information. I'll leave it with this to just say today, I put all of this in this book that came out, but it's now been translated into many different languages. And today, it is out in French. It's there, the question to each of you. What will you sacrifice for the truth? Think about it. This is the moment. This matters. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maria. As you can hear that applause, you can see how much your words were appreciated. I now have an apology to make, and I'm very sorry because I think of all things I've been guilty of spreading disinformation. My mouth betrayed me, and I think instead of saying the Prime Minister of Iceland, I said the Prime Minister of Ireland. Clearly, Katrín Jakobsdóttir is the Prime Minister of Iceland. It is my great pleasure, though, now to move straight on from that and give the floor to Mr. Tawfik Jelassi. Now, he is the Assistant Director General of Communication and Information at UNESCO, and he is going to explain the overall objective of the consultation.
What an impossible task to try to speak after Maria Ressa. I told Melissa Fleming that I would prefer to give my 3 minutes to Maria to continue sharing with us her reflections, her wisdom, and her personal journey. But now I warn you, are changing styles. This is the UN, the UNESCO style, to read the speech prepared by my team. So please bear with me. Here it goes. Excellencies, let me try again. Excellency, President of the General Conference of UNESCO, Excellency, Madam President of the Executive Board, Excellencies, Ambassadors, Permanent Delegates, distinguished guests, representatives of the civil society organizations, of the technology companies, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen. What an amazing start we had this morning. First with a poem, then with Madame Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, and then obviously with Maria Ressa. I hope what you heard so far sets the scene for such complex issue that we are debating today and tomorrow, and obviously the potential impact that the guidelines to regulate digital platforms that UNESCO is trying to coordinate, to facilitate, could bring about positive change to cyberspace. It was said by many that what we would like to see these digital spaces become a place where information is a common public good and information ceases to be a public hazard and a public harm. Clearly, the response to these questions is not simple. There isn't one size fits all. There isn't a single solution. And this is very much why we have used an inclusive multi-stakeholder approach, very much founded on international standards of human rights. This said, by convening this global dialogue, by coordinating this process of open consultations with all parties concerned, by taking the responsibility of drafting these guidelines, UNESCO would like to add a piece to this complex puzzle. UNESCO, in a humble way, would like to bring its brick to such construction. I will come back this afternoon with more details on why, what, and how underpinning this conference. Why UNESCO? What are we trying to do? And how we hope to operationalize these guidelines once they are finalized through this multi-stakeholder approach. Je voudrais dire quelques mots en français, mesdames et messieurs, afin de préparer ce grand rendez-vous qu'on a aujourd'hui et demain. Nous avons mené depuis septembre dernier de nombreuses et larges consultations qui ont impliqué tous les acteurs concernés par un problème aussi complexe, aussi crucial pour nous tous. Avec un objectif bien clair, définir des principes mondiaux de régulation des plateformes numériques afin de lutter contre tous les méfaits qu'on a tous vécus, qu'on vit toujours, et ça a été cité, la désinformation, les discours de haine, l'harcèlement en ligne, tout en essayant de protéger, évidemment, la liberté d'expression et les droits de l'homme. Il ne s'agit pas de réguler pour censurer, il s'agit de réguler pour que l'information soit ce bien public partagé, tout en protégeant la liberté d'expression en ligne. Les consultations que nous avons menées depuis maintenant presque 6 mois ont abouti, il y a quelques semaines, à la publication du deuxième draft, le document 2.0 de ces principes de régulation, document mis en ligne il y a déjà quelques semaines. Ce document, ces principes, dans leur version actuelle, appellent à la responsabilité de plusieurs acteurs. La responsabilité des gouvernements à mettre en place les instances de régulation indépendantes des pouvoirs économiques et des pouvoirs politiques afin d'assurer le respect des libertés. La responsabilité des plateformes numériques en matière de modération des contenus avec un investissement adéquat dans toutes les régions du monde et dans toutes les langues du monde. La responsabilité aussi des plateformes de former massivement les utilisateurs à l'usage critique de leurs outils. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, it is also important to underline the role of researchers, academia, and the technical community in providing their expertise to these discussions. Civil society, media professionals, and journalists should use these guidelines to hold all relevant players accountable and to actively participate in policy making in different jurisdictions in a truly multi-stakeholder manner. All these groups participated in this process, and we count on them to continue their engagement, their commitment, until we reach the final stage of the documentation. They sent us suggestions, comments, inputs, but also criticism, which we have been taking into account. We are here today and tomorrow for another open consultation with all of you to gain even a deeper understanding of the issues at hand to improve the process going forward. If we don't come together as an international community, we risk a political and jurisdictional fragmentation that will certainly jeopardize an internet founded on human rights, on openness, on accessibility, on multi-stakeholder governance. It is time to reboot the internet. It's time to build an internet of trust. Have a fruitful conference.